National Assembly affirms power of states to collect VAT. World Bank set to grant Ukraine a $3 billion aid package. Plus, oil spiked further on Wednesday as Russia shows no signs of stopping its assault on Ukraine. This is Business Express on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA, and we are reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Benny Adams, your guide. You're welcome to That Time We Talk Business, and we begin with the news that the World Bank has announced that it is preparing a $3 billion aid package for war-torn Ukraine, which will include at least $350 million in immediate funds. The International Monetary Fund and World Bank in recent days had pledged to provide further support to Ukraine and have moved quickly to put that promise into motion. The first tranche of the aid will be submitted to the board for approval this week, followed by $200 million in fast disbursing support for health and education. World Bank President David Malpass said in a joint statement with IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva. The IMF, which has an ongoing $2.2 billion financing program with the country through June, will consider the country's latest request for emergency financing as early as next week. The World Bank's Women, Business and Law 2022 report shows that around 2.4 billion women of working age are not afforded equal economic opportunity, and 178 countries maintain legal barriers that prevent their full economic participation. In 86 countries, women face some form of job restriction, and 95 countries do not guarantee equal pay for equal work. The report says globally, women still have only 3/4 of the legal rights afforded to men, an aggregate score of 76.5 out of a possibly 100%, which denotes complete legal parity. However, despite the disappropriate nature of this effect on women's lives and livelihood from the global pandemic, 23 countries reformed their laws in 2021 to take much-needed steps towards advancing women's economic inclusion. The report added that the Middle East, North Africa, and Sub-Saharan African regions showed the largest improvement in the WBL index in 2021. Though they continued to lag behind other parts of the world overall, Gabon stands out with comprehensive reforms to its civil code and the enactment of a law on the elimination of violence against women. Gabon's score rose from 57.5 in 2020 to 82.5 in 2021. Now, the need for a workable, accelerated energy transition strategy that targets societies, policymakers, and investors is the focus of the Chief Executive's Roundtable at the ongoing Nigerian International Energy Summit. Lydia Sampson has more.
Decades, the oil and gas industry globally has enjoyed sustainable growth with great return on investment. Lately, significant developments have shaken the industry's foundation. Key players believe navigating this fundamental shift is critical.
While we pursue the country's energy transition agenda, let us also recognize that fossil fuels will continue to play a critical role in our energy and economic systems.
First one is that we must hold on to the base. We must protect the base. Protecting the base means that for oil production, it is absolutely important that we look at it again. We've done that for 30, 40 years. Are we really doing it at the best we should be?
Following the rapidly changing landscape, experts say proactive measures that will not deny the realities and negate the population growth vis-a-vis the growing energy demand is key.
In 20 years, if you cannot put $33 trillion into infrastructure, it means we cannot close the infrastructure gap in the next 20 years. That includes energy, and everything else that you see.
You cannot even think of taking an FID without having as a very critical element of it the greenhouse gas emissions that would result.
The future of energy is lower carbon. It is our intent to leverage our strengths to deliver lower carbon energy to the world.
By 2050, when we want to have net zero in carbon, we will be 10 billion people. What this means is that we have more people and we want to transition. So this is the big challenge for the industry.
They are optimistic that harnessing natural gas as a transition fuel is a step towards reducing carbon footprints and cleaner energy.
Now, the outbreak of war in Eastern Europe is sending shockwaves through the world and is reshaping the energy transition debate as oil prices and other commodities rise. To discuss this is the Secretary General African Petroleum Producers Organization, APO. He's no other person but Dr. Farouk Umar Ibrahim. Doctor, you're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you.
Good to have you. It's been a long while.
Thank you.
Well, there has been this ongoing conversation on the right energy mix. What is this mix and how do we get to this? How can we manage this? Fossil fuels, clean energy, environmentalists are saying no, there's so much pollution. This energy is needed. How do we get there?
Well, I think the energy agenda in the world today is an agenda set by countries that are advanced and developed. This is an agenda that they have made the world to come to believe this is an agenda for all of us. When we talk of energy transition, we are made to believe that the burning of fossil fuels, oil, gas, coal, is detrimental to human health, and that the emissions that go out from the burning of these fuels cause global gas houses and atmospheric pollution, and we should do everything to stop it. I don't think anybody is going to ever argue or disagree with any proposal to make the world a better place for all.
Sure.
But better place for all is really a question of where you stand in that equation. Our position in Africa is that fossil fuels have been used for the last 170 years. In the last 150 years, the world has known that fossil fuels produce emissions that are dangerous to humanity. But because the industrialized world of today were just trying to industrialize and consolidate their economies, that study was kept away from the public. Today, the industrialized countries of the world have graduated from using intensive energy for manufacturing and therefore sustaining or stabilizing their economies to the use of manufacturing knowledge and artificial intelligence.
But even at that, China is still around there with the coal used to power their industries.
I'll come to China. All of a sudden, we are today told, now that Africa is on the verge of industrialization,
yes,
where we shall need a lot of energy, and there is no better energy today that is most affordable, most reliable, and readily available than fossil fuels.
Sure.
We want to use this, and the world is telling us that no, don't use it. In Africa alone, we have 125 billion barrels of proven oil reserves and over 500 trillion cubic feet of gas. And out of the 1.3 billion people on the African continent, 600 million do not have access to electricity. 900 million do not have access to any form of energy.
Has a huge challenge.
And this is the energy we have, energy that for the last 70 to 80 years we have tried to understand the technology to be able to use it. and all of a sudden we're being told that you can't use it. We go for something we don't know. The question, what we have been saying in Africa is that if Europe and America, they were the ones that are blessed with oil and gas the way the Middle East and Africa has been blessed, I guarantee you, Ben, they will develop the technology that will make fossil fuels clean. The issue is a question of
clean energy, yes.
Okay? So they would have developed the technology. But they realize if they develop that technology, they are going to continue to be dependent on foreign energy. So it's better they kill it so that nobody uses it.
It's about benefits.
Exactly.
Well, in that whole quagmire that we're in, yes, the new suggestion is moving towards gas, which is a cleaner energy. Well, it's a transition process, and the federal government is doing well in that direction. But let me take you away to current realities. Oil prices are on the rise as a result of the crisis between Russia and Ukraine. Now we're also faced with our own domestic challenge, talking about the scarcity. In all of this, what is the way out?
On this, let me take the scarcity in Nigeria as
home first.
Yes. Seriously speaking, if Nigeria focuses on refining, the issue of scarcity will be a matter of the past. We have, in the last 70 years that we've been producing oil, conditioned our minds into believing that we are producing it not for the good of our country, but for the need of foreign markets. And then you use the funds that you get from that market
to develop your infrastructure. Perhaps.
I'm not so exactly, ostensibly to develop infrastructure. But seriously speaking, a large chunk of the money that African countries receive from the sale of their crude oil doesn't go into development of infrastructure. It goes into conspicuous consumption. And if that can be put aside and you really invest, look, if the mainstay of Nigerian or Apple member countries' economy is oil, you have no reason not to invest a lot of money that you make from oil, especially when you have periods of windfalls, into mastering that technology, into creating the funds to develop that technology, even after the countries on whom you have been dependent have gone away.
This knowledge is there. And for experts like you, you've been in OPEC, you've been in this industry for so many years. And I'm sure this advice, this point of view is being out there. What is stopping us from getting to do the right thing?
It's a tough one. I don't think it's lack of understanding from the leadership. I don't think it's lack of
let's leave it at that, Prof.
Okay.
Now, this growing scarcity, courtesy this crisis, what is the impact on the global oil market? A lot of shipments, Russia is about the second largest exporter of both crude and even refined, just after Saudi Arabia. And a lot of people are saying, hey, we are not buying, we are not even shipping, we don't want to go close to this. And because of the sanctions, what is the adverse effect? What is the possible implication? And not just the global oil, but also for us, Africa, whom sell our crude to get the refined products?
Well, definitely it will cause more volatility, as you have already begun to see on the market. Volatility is not good for the industry. But for countries that are producing oil, volatility, especially sharp and ones like, you make quite some money from these instabilities, etc. The question is, how best can you make use of this, take advantage of this?
Particularly for us in Nigeria when we're talking about subsidy.
The subsidy is a political issue. I think eventually, whether government likes it or not, and I'm speaking really not about Nigeria, but the whole of Africa, whether they like it or not, they will have to let go subsidy. Because at the end of the day, seriously speaking, if you want to strengthen that industry, to consolidate it, government cannot do it alone. You have to bring private entrepreneurs. And the private entrepreneurs don't come in because they are nationalistic or they are patriotic. They are guided by what will they make in that business, what profit. The profit motive determines to a large extent what they do. So if they are going to go into an enterprise that they are not likely to get profit, no matter the preaching, no matter the exhortation, no matter what you do, they are not going to do it as they should.
Okay, with these rising prices, the IEA is saying that they're going to be rolling out some stockpiles to see to measure up with the supplies to kind of create this equilibrium. What do you see that doing to the prices?
Well, you see, when you have issues like this, IEA is really part of, the West. Anytime there is instability like this, the IEA will definitely come out and make suggest that it will supplement what is on the market. The extent to which that will bring down the price or stabilize the market is really very, very limited. There is a limit to what they can do. Because seriously speaking, the oil market to a large extent is not determined by just fundamentals. It's not just supply and demand. No, it is a market that is heavily manipulated. Geopolitics plays a big role. As soon as political statements are made, even before the market has produced more or withdrawn,
just the jitters,
exactly,
just the information,
exactly,
it begins to take some shape.
Exactly. So really these are the issues. And I can say to us, Nigeria and Africa, that look, continue to invest in the oil and gas industry. For the next 15 years, you're not going to lose. You'll make a lot of money. Because in the next 5-10 years, we will come to find that as a result of the noise made about demonizing oil and gas, a lot of investors have gone out. A number of key institutional funders in Europe and America, World Bank, have said they don't want to have anything to do with this oil and gas. What this means is that in the next 5 to 10 years, when the world has grown in terms of more population and needs more energy, the renewable energy that we are looking at now would not materialize because it's still in its infancy. And at the same time, the fossil fuels that have, for the last 150 years, sustained the world economy and made it to grow, will also not be available. So those of us who are able to continue to make that investment will find that you can dictate the price.
Okay, for Nigeria, the PIA is here and is seen as a game changer according to industry analysts, and which we agree to. Now we're talking about output, talking about the crude production. How can we increase our output? Because if you look at our quota at OPEC, it seems we don't get to meet such targets. What can we do to improve this?
Well, essentially, there are 3 areas. One is the question of funding. Just this morning, the GMD of NNPC was speaking at the Nigerian International Energy Summit, and he brought out this issue about funding. Yes, funding is critical, but I believe that seriously speaking, Africa should begin to think differently about funding. We can't continue to think that we are going to continue to depend on countries that have already decided that they are moving on with their lives in terms of fossil fuel, to continue to get money from them.
They will not be necessarily willing.
They will not, and if they do, the terms will be so unequal for us. I've always, look, let me say it very clearly, I have always believed that if Africa believes sincerely that it has these resources, it can raise the funds with which to develop it.
Thank you so very much. At that point, it's actually a strong one to end this discussion. It's something we can continue some other time. Thank you so very much, Dr. Farouk Umar Ibrahim, for sharing your thoughts with us on the way to go on the energy challenge and its prospects.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for having me.
Moving on, the Association of National Accountants of Nigeria has resolved to continually ensure the training of competent professionals through the deployment of technology. This was at the first session of 2022 mandatory continuing professional development program in Abuja with the launch of a digital hub. Neka Oko reports.
The accounting profession today is poised to move in with global trends by leveraging on the opportunities technology offers for seamless execution of accounting procedures. The conversation here is x-raying emerging trends in accountancy with a view to entrenching professional ethics in members through training and retraining.
We are not the first nation in the world to get a digital hub. And we acknowledge the help of our partners, CPA, Ireland, and ACCA, and such bodies. But what we are saying is that we have gone on to domesticate this skill and create here skills and tools that will enable Nigerians to excel. And this theme for this year is contemporary development in public sector and financial management. All this is geared towards training the members of the association.
For some members of the association, there can never be any missed opportunity.
This program is usually held every year, and it is expected as an accountant every year you get to renew what you have already learned.
This has changed my life so many ways, especially in the digital era that we are in now.
The new digital hub is designed to offer the association and its members a comprehensive customized platform for an interactive and engaging learning experience.
Now, oil prices surged on Wednesday as supply disruption fears mounted following hefty sanctions on Russian banks amid the intensifying Ukraine conflict. Brent crude futures rose by as much as $8 and touched as high as $113.02 a barrel, the highest since June 2014, before easing to $111.75. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures were up $7.24 to $110.67 a barrel, after earlier hitting the highest since August. Up next is the commodity market. And to the capital market, at the end of trade for 2nd March 2022, the NGX All-Share Index dipped 0.26% to close at 47,360.79 basis points, with market capitalization at 25.5 trillion naira. A total of 279.9 million shares worth 4.1 billion naira were traded in 5,620 deals. And stocks on the global scene came under renewed pressure Wednesday as Russia-Ukraine crisis persists. Bossed Abel tells us more.
Hello, it's the Global Market Review. The conflict between the neighboring countries in Europe is leading to a surge in oil prices, with international benchmark Brent crude futures up around 5.3% at $110.60 per barrel. European stocks were uncertain, even though it was on a positive day Wednesday, as the geopolitical crisis between Russia and Ukraine continues. DAX was up 0.17%, FTSE 0.93%, and CAC 40 also top 0.15%. Shares in Asia mostly tumbled in Wednesday's trade as the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict continues to lead a surge in oil prices. The Nikkei 225 in Japan dropped 1.68% across 26,393.03. Shanghai Composite dipped 0.13% at 3,484.19, and the Hang Seng Index also depreciated by 1.84% across 22,343.92. U.S. stock futures rose in early trade Wednesday amid the intensifying conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Futures tied to the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 38.94 points, S&P 500 0.85%, and Nasdaq Composite 0.36%. Back home, most African stocks picked up from previous losses in the week, giving the bulls more edge as investors continued to monitor the war between Russia and Ukraine. That's the Global Markets Review. I am Bossede Abel.
Thank you, Bossede. And on that note, we end this edition of Business Express. Business Express returns tomorrow at 9:30 a.m.